Welcome to this edition of Times Techies Friday Plus Plus. I'm Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate this discussion that we are doing in partnership with NetApp and Legato. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. India has a very high proportion of girls in STEM education compared to even many developed countries. That reflects in the employment in the Indian tech industry as well. Women constitute more than 34% of the employees in the sector. This is much higher than in the US, Canada, Australia. It's much higher than in the rest of organized Indian industry. With multiple industry-wide and firm-specific policies, the Indian IT sector has created the confidence that tech jobs are safe and suitable for women. Yet we have a problem. The bulk of the women are in the entry level and lower rungs. There are very few in the middle and upper rungs. The reasons are well known. Women drop out because of a variety of family reasons and do not return. That impacts women at large. Research also shows that diversity is good for business, that more women on boards and C-suites positively impacts profitability and return on equity. Today, we are going to discuss why we need more women in middle and top management in the Indian tech industry and what more needs to be done to bridge the gap. To discuss that, we have three seasoned professionals. We have with us Sangeeta Gupta. Sangeeta is Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at NASSCOM. Sangeeta joined NASSCOM right after her Master's in Economics from the Delhi School of Economics. She's now been with NASSCOM for 31 years. Sangeeta, that's more than what I've been at Times of India. Mine is like 26 years. Sangeeta manages numerous major programs at NASSCOM that focus on industry research, outreach, events, communications, and NASSCOM's strategic goals. Welcome, Sangeeta.
We have with us Subhashini Sriram. Subhashini is Staff Vice President of HR at Legato. Legato is the Global Capability Center of US healthcare insurance company Anthem. As part of Legato's leadership, she focuses on building the company's culture, talent, and processes. Subhashini has over 25 years of HR experience in a variety of industries. Prior to Legato, she was with Unisys, Northern Trust, Perot Systems, and Philips Software. Welcome, Subhashini.
Thank you. Thank you, Shilpa.
Thank you. And we have with us Madhurima Agarwal. Madhurima is the Director for Engineering Program at NetApp. She holds the global responsibility for leading NetApp's startup program called NetApp Accelerator. She also plays a key role in driving enhanced collaboration between engineering and market-facing functions across NetApp in India. She brings with her over 17 years of experience, including in financial firms like Goldman Sachs and Fidelity. Welcome, Madhurima.
Thank you, Shilpa. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Those of you viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to Madhurima, Subhashini, and Sangeeta. Can we start with each of you giving us insights into your own careers? You're all role models. You have risen to the top. What got you there?
Who wants to start? Sangeeta, you want to start?
I can start as the veteran in this group. I think my career journey has been fairly straightforward. Like Sujit introduced, started with NASSCOM and have been with the organization. And I think it's been why I've stayed has been really because every moment has been a learning experience. NASSCOM has given me the opportunity to run numerous different programs, learn from a different variety of leaders and continue to grow, right? So it's like sometimes when people come and ask me saying, how can you stay so long in an organization? I think I've stayed because I've grown, loved, and enjoyed every moment of being here. I think during this journey, there have been a number of learning experiences, right? From the time, when our president, Devang Mehta, at that time passed away and people just thought NASSCOM would collapse. At that time, I think the taking of the ownership of saying, how do I work with the industry to keep NASSCOM going and taking it to the next level? That to me was a moment of truth. I was still very relatively young in my career. But to be able to stand up to something that one would never have imagined was one of those real moments of truth for me. I think the second was really when Mittal asked me to lead the whole research program at NASSCOM. And I said, I'm not an analyst background. I've done my economics. I really don't understand it. But I think having mentors who understand what your capabilities are and push you into doing it, I think that has really been my journey at NASSCOM. And in each of these, I really learned that if you get an opportunity, grab it, because you can build capabilities if you want to build around that invest in yourself. But the important part of it is to grab the opportunities that are coming with you rather than undermine your capabilities. I was one of those who would always undermine myself, saying, I'm not good enough for this. But I think what I've learned over this journey is that if you invest in learning, there are things you can crack, and then for many others, you can go and ask people around you. There's no harm in asking, I don't know AI, can you help me understand that? So I would say those are really be my journey. The industry is now in such a phenomenal phase that the opportunities to do more still are very, very high. So be passionate about your work, enjoy what you do, grab every learning opportunity, and find the mentors that believe in you. Would be a short summary, Sujit, Shilpa, of my career.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, grab opportunities. Sangeeta, there's a little disturbance. It's not so, I mean, we can hear you clearly and all that. But when you start speaking, there's some kind of a noise that happens. See if while the others are speaking, whether you can address that. Otherwise, I don't know, it's clear. It's not a problem. Who wants to go? Subhashini?
Hey, thank you. That was really nice, Sangeeta. So I started my journey as a management trainee in Philips post my master's in electronics. Philips gave me the opportunity to move into the human resources function from being a hardware and a software engineer. I think since then to now, it's been a great journey. Some of it that Sangeeta said absolutely resonates with me. I think if you're able to pick a passionate area, and if you see that you are, of course, getting value add by going into the job, doing and learning from it, and at the same time contributing back to your satisfaction, that keeps you going on. And that's really what I think kept me going through the last so many years. Of course, different industries, different cultures, the American, the European, and the Indian culture, and all that. There's so much to learn and there's so much to contribute, which is primarily the thing I would think has been the reason to sort of stay put. On the personal side, of course, I have two daughters, the elder one at 21 and the younger one is at 12. I think what is also important, or what kept me going, was the kind of support that I got all along, right? Both my parents were medical professionals. My mom was a working mother, so a lot of learning from how she managed multiple things. But the support the family provides and the support the organization provides through your leaders who work with you, who mentor you, who support you on the times that you think, should I just step back? Should I just take a break? All those role models, both male and female, I would say, came in and helped at the right times. So got lucky a little bit, I would also say, all through my career. And yes, of course, the family support. And of course, you really want to also be doing and contributing. And I think human resources function has ample of opportunities to learn and contribute. I think these are the basic things which has helped me grow, I would say.
Support you got from your family and your organization. Okay. Madhurima?
Yeah, thanks, Sujit. I think, the one word that would sum up my career is unconventional. And let me share, the story why I call it unconventional. So I started out as an entrepreneur while I was doing my computer science undergrad degree. And then I did my MBA.
Coding even earlier. I think we wrote about you in Times.
Yeah.
So good in coding even
yes,
when you were in
thanks
school or
for
something.
that. Yeah, coding was my first love, started in class 8, I think, and looking back. But, after doing my MBA from IMA in 2003, I'm dating myself by sharing that, but yes, life changed. I spent the next decade in the financial services industry as an investment analyst, covering, the banking sector, covering the FMCG and all. And then decided to step out of that industry and move back to the startup side. And today I am with NetApp, one of the leading organizations in the cloud space, heading their startup program, right? And during this time, I've taken a couple of career breaks. Yes, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, I think, and not kept a bucket list for later, because you never know when you'll get a chance to do that. And if you ask me, how I did what I did, I don't have an answer. I think I took life as it came. If something interested me, just took that leap of faith, and that took that risk, I would say. Of course, as Subhashini said, family support very important, right from the early days to today, till today, right? I mean, it's that has been one constant thing that I've been lucky enough to have. And yes, as I like to say, I'm a great believer in luck, timing, and destiny. So somewhere that has played a part.
Right. Yeah. Like Sangeeta also said, grabbed opportunities. Yeah. So, great stories, all of you. I mean, I really want to understand later on what are the things that will really help others in the profession. But before that, can we discuss this point about why it's important to have diversity? Uh, yes, women are, like we said, 34% of the Indian tech industry, yet in the middle and top management, it's much lower. Why is it important that we have more women in these positions? Who wants to go first?
I can go Sujit for it,
Go
right?
ahead. Yeah.
See, the very fact that we need to have this discussion itself points that there is need, that work needs to be done in this area, right? Why do we need more women in technology? Because it's important to view in, to factor in the views of 50% of the world's population, given that tech industry is one of the main forces that will shape the future that is yet to come. Right, we need women in roles where they have the power of decision making, so that we can overcome the biases that exist in AI, gender pay issues, whether we are talking about product design. As you said, there's research about driving financial performance where there is diversity in leadership, bringing in multiple perspectives, right? All that is extremely important for the world's future, if I have to say that, right? I don't know how many of you have read this book, Invisible Women, by Caroline Credo Perez. It is a great example of what goes wrong when we do not have adequate representation of women in decision making roles, in senior leadership roles, right? I can go on and on, but I'll just pause here.
Can you give an anecdote where with more women could have done better?
See, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's true or not, but by my being the leader of NetApp Accelerator, I was able to influence and create a program focused on women entrepreneurs because I had seen the need for that, right? I realized that's a gap that exists, and we launched NetApp Accelerate Her. Would somebody else have thought of it? Probably, not taking away from that. But having had that experience, knowing what it takes, having spoken to other women entrepreneurs and investors, it just made it easier for me to bring out why we needed this program carved out.
Okay. Who wants to go? Subhashini, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think very well put, first of all, Madhu, totally agree with you. I also strongly believe that creating a diverse workforce at the decision-making level of our organization is really the next big lever in driving an holistic impact, right? Not just for women, but for the industry and the economy. Increasing women's participation in the middle and the senior management in the tech industry has multiple impacts. First and foremost, I think there is absolute need to create role models who will inspire the upcoming talent and reduce the dropout rates in the mid and the senior career segment. If you really look at most people, maybe a few of us are lucky, do not have role models at their home. And it is important to have role models who are up there for people to see and grow on. I think bridging the gap between the DNA vision that the companies are making and its realization at a ground level by overcoming some structural impediments and creating a nurturing culture is also extremely important to have women in the middle and the senior management. Given all that, I think the fact is also that the tech industry is really the driving industry from a transformation perspective, which is happening across all of the industries. So having women in the higher segment as touch points and ambassadors of change will drive cross-pollination of D&I to other industries. So there's a huge impact that the tech industry can create in other industries. And of course, that will have an impact to the economy. From a macroeconomic perspective as well, I do think that we have gone on and on about reaping benefits through demographic dividends, particularly from an age point of view. But I think time has come for us to also leverage the demographic dividend from a gender perspective, which I think could probably be really the silver bullet, right, to reach the 5 trillion GDP goal that our nation has set to ourselves. So I think it's got larger impact across multiple segments, women, industry, and economy, and hence it is a need. And it's time that we really take it to a very, very important level to strategize and implement.
So let's reap the dividend, not just of age, but also of gender or women. And there's a lot that the tech industry can do to influence other industries, is what you're saying, if there's more. Yeah. Okay. Sangeeta?
So Madhurima and Subhashini have raised some great points, so I won't repeat them. But I think just the added factor is the importance of empathetic leadership. I think the last 18, 20 months have taught us that, there is a new paradigm for leadership that is needed. You have to understand, employees and their issues and, what they are going through. And having more women at senior levels, middle, senior, is the right way to build that empathetic leadership in the organization, apart from the fact that the women are, the buyers, they will bring in diversity of decision making, etc. So I'm not repeating the points. But I think the importance of empathetic leadership and culture that Subhashini talked about, which is becoming so important as we move to this hybrid workforce. So as a tech industry, we've done very well with this 30, 34, 35% women workforce. I think our next goal has to be about saying what can we do at middle and senior management levels, because now we've had for the last 5-7 years, this 1/3 proportion of women joining the workforce. So in the past, this argument used to be, if your base point of starting is 8-10%, how can you have proportionality as you move up? But now that, we have a foundation set up with the right initiatives, you can, change some of these ratios that we are all working towards going forward.
Okay. Empathy, I just want to understand, you think women tend to be more empathetic than men?
I definitely think so.
Yeah, you can see it in practice?
I see it in practice. As an organization, we have a number of senior women leaders. Now at NASSCOM, including in our executive council, the quality of discussions are very different from what we would have had in the past also, right? So I'm seeing this in practice in my own organization.
Okay. Great. This 34%, has that been moving up?
It's been moving up consistently, Sujit. So it used to be a decade back, we were probably at 23-24%. So it's, so much more now. So, and, like you rightly said, the entry level at the women in STEM, it's probably a 49-50% already. So the base exists now. I think now it is about, like we said, how do you retain these women so you don't lose them as they move up the career ladder?
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah. Subhashini and Madhurima, coming to you, how are companies like yours growing the funnel at the mid and senior leadership levels? If you can talk about some of the structured interventions in place and how you're fostering a culture of inclusion.
Who wants to go? Go ahead, Subhashini.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question because I think as senior leaders, it's extremely important to be the influencer there as well. I think Sangeeta talked about how, it's gone from about 23% to 34%. I mean, if I look at Legato myself at this point, we are at 37% from a diversity perspective, and it manages an above level at 30%. And at senior leadership level, we are at 27%. Very, very conscious efforts, in terms of trying to bring in people, from a women diversity perspective. Of course, I think I'm limiting it to women diversity. We definitely want to look beyond that, PWD and all of this, but, that's not the topic of relevance today. Few things, as most try to do, we are definitely trying to do, right? At an entry level itself, can we make sure that we look at sensitizing our interviewing panel, making sure that there is conscious effort in the funnel itself, all the way from we looking at, every position to have at least, some percentage of women applicants and reviewing it. I think there is definitely a lot of rigor that we have put in the last, couple of years. And of course, Legato is in existence the last few years, and we have grown to the size what we are. but there is, clear efforts there, and we see that those efforts do benefit us. When you're reviewing something, when there are matrices that you sort of look at, and there is soft target, so to say, there is definitely some needle movement. The second is, not just about bringing them in. After you bring them in, do you have the right policies? Do you really look at making sure that the different life stages that a woman goes through, we are accommodating those interests and sensitizing our leaders to understand those. I mean, we have to be mindful to the fact that I talked about it a little while ago. One is most women are first-time working mothers, so they need a lot of guidance and support. So can we provide them with mentors who've sort of been there, done that, who talk to them at the moments that they are really, really at their low and they want to take a step back? Then they intervene and say, hey, you don't need to be a superwoman. Everybody has gone through this. Here are the 3-4 things that you do, and figure it out. And then giving some flexibility. I think flexibility goes a long way in my own personal life as well. I talked about some of the leaders, male leaders, women leaders who have all helped me. You ask for help. So we do insist, and women sometimes have this tendency of not really going out and asking for help at the time that's required. So we do call out that please ask for help. You never know, in what form where help comes from. So creating channels to support through mentorship, asking help, talking about the policies, sensitizing our leaders on some of these needs, and having very clear agenda to drive that, and having some of the senior women leaders in the forefront of these, right? I mean, all of us who are in the senior leadership level to talk about it. We also try and make it at a ground level. What are some of the things that we can do? For example, we know that the most difficult, space in your career is when you are pregnant and you're looking for childbirth and post phase that, right? So can we provide some support and help at that phase and post that? And those are the things that really makes a difference, at a grassroots level. So, and all the way taking it to, ensuring that, the women leaders come together and support, and through policies and structures, and nurturing, and, the empathy and the emotional connect that they provide. I think those are all, initiatives in different forms. Of course, we have a lot of different names. We call it as melange, we call it as this, we call it as that. But I think it's fundamentally looking at the end-to-end life cycle of women and employee and relating it, and understanding the moments that matter to them, and really making sure that those moments that matter are the ones where we try and extend our help and support through structural, and policy based interventions. So that's the high level, but I will leave it for Madhu to also talk about.
Sujit, you're
I'm muted. Sorry.
Yeah.
If amongst all these, if you had to identify one or two that made the most impact, is there something like that?
I think women leaders as role models and mentors, because this whole concept of, and that comes back to this point as well, the whole concept of you don't need to be a superwoman to really be doing everything. All the ordinary women like us have come up. You just have to have a few things right. And what are those few things? And have a little bit patience and be patient with yourself. Set your expectations for yourself also, right? I think those really go a long way, because one conversation with a women leader I myself know that have quite a few people who talk to me when they were at difficult times have sort of sailed through, and they've come back after a few years saying that, hey, that conversation helped me. I think that is really the most impactful one, right? That empathy, that connect, and the coaching and support in a very timely manner. That's the most impactful one.
Okay. Madhurima?
Yeah, I think, Subhashini mentioned all the great stuff that is being done at organizations at Legato, and most of it holds true for NetApp as well. We look at getting more women in the workforce right at the early stages, and apart from the standard HR things that are done, which is reach out to colleges, have a specific focused messaging for the women candidates, and that, I think one thing which I really love about NetApp is the fact that we have a program which sponsors girls in engineering at the top government colleges across India. And it's a sizable number of women who are getting that access to that program. And on a periodic basis, the NetApp leaders go and coach and mentor those girls, right? We've been doing it online right now, but when It was when were the days where we were all going to office, they would get a chance to come and spend a day at the NetApp campus, right? Just to see what their future can hold, right? And I think that's a great initiative. I myself had a chance to go and take a session for these girls in engineering, and I came back so enthused and energized. Just seeing the enthusiasm that they brought. So it works both ways, right? We also have hackathons that are done just for women to ensure that we attract the right kind of talent. And as Subhashini said, right, it's not just attracting the right talent, it's also retaining them and nurturing them. So a lot is being done in that area. We have one thing I really liked was we have something called unconscious bias training that all leaders have to go through compulsorily. And I think I'm a champion of diversity, but after undergoing that training, I realized there's so much I have also learned, right? So there's always scope for all of us to learn. And that really makes people, leaders, think about, how they are going to bring in diversity in their teams. Then, of course, we have a Women in Tech program that runs across the globe at NetApp. And we have a very vibrant India chapter. As part of that, we provide, the idea is to provide a safe space where women can come together and share their challenges and learn from others' journey. Right? That I think is very powerful, something that makes a lot of difference. It is, of course, in their professional lives, personal lives, and simple things like they get together and share ideas around coding if they are facing a challenge. It's just a space to come together and build that community. And as Sangeeta and Subhashini earlier said, the power of networks, seeing role models, that's what it develops, right? It becomes very visible that there are women who have been able to achieve what they wanted, and so can you. That's a very powerful message that is needed at the early stage, because for women, self-doubt comes more easily than others, I think. So it's more important that they get to see role models more than the males, right? Because we are lesser in numbers, so it's harder to find us. But yeah.
Okay. I know you also stress the role model thing, but I just want to ask you, since men, have you seen the men in your organization changing with all the programs addressed to them? Are you brutally telling them these are your biases and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I do think that, I do have to say, first of all, a lot of men have been empathetic and understanding. Otherwise, I would not be here where I am, because if you're talking about majority of men being in the industry to whatever percentage we have come, without their support, how would we have come? But, having said that, like I mentioned earlier, like how I said, most of us are first-time working mothers, barring a few of us, where we don't have role models, and the small push comes, then we tend to take the back seat. This is why I should not have taken this opportunity. I should have concentrated more on my family, and so on and so forth. There are also men that we need to understand that they have also not seen role models, right? I mean, they have also not seen the mothers, the sisters working, and so they do not know what is it for an employee to go through this. So they also need sensitization. They also need some understanding of it. And the more we educate, the better it is. I mean, I can confidently say, at least in my own life, my husband, definitely would know the pain points that a woman goes through with 2 children, with, managing between family and priorities at office. And I'm sure, he will be empathetic to people around, under him, around him, above him, right? I mean, and that goes, that has its own dominoes effect, and there is no doubt on that.
Yeah. Sangeeta, tell us, I mean, you have an overview of the entire industry. You've seen many number of companies doing these kind of programs. What is your sense? What are the most impactful programs?
I think, great points raised by both the other panelists. And I think as NASSCOM, our focus has been really to take the best of examples that companies like NetApp, Legato, and others are running, and take them to the wider section of NASSCOM membership. The industry has a very long tail. So, what can we learn from what Legato has done, what NetApp has done, what XYZ companies have done, and take the best of those practices to the large base of NASSCOM members. And we started that very early on with the NASSCOM Diversity Awards that we probably started a decade back. I think the initial years of those awards were just about some of the practices that were discussed, right? How do you, what are the flexibility that you can provide to women at different stages of their workforce? What kind of mentorship models can be built? And that has really helped not just the large or multinational companies, but a large section of even Indian companies to think holistically about diversity. So clearly, the peer learning that we've been able to drive through these programs has been very, very helpful. I think if you look now to the specific topic that we are discussing, Sujit, the top things that, as NASSCOM, we are debating that we should focus on. One is clearly metrics, right? If you don't measure, you don't know. So we started measuring the 34%, right? And we've said we have a goal, we know what to do about it. I think the first part for us is really to go out and start tracking what is this metrics for women at middle and senior management, and then where do we want to go from there. So I think to me, that is one more very important objective that we all focus on. Companies are already doing it. At NASSCOM, it will be our job to aggregate and see where do we stand. I think the second and important focus that NASSCOM is driving is the part that Madhurima spoke about, that as all these technologies are coming in, how do you ensure women don't get left behind, right? So specific programs for ensuring more women in tech and their career ladders, making sure they are getting the right inputs, skilling programs that are needed to ensure they can, get updated with the newer technologies as part of the upskilling program. So I think, that would be my second ask. I think third continues to be repeating what Subhashini said, is role models, right? The more role models that we have, the more their stories are told. That will be the inspiration for many more women leaders that we have. At least as NASSCOM, I've really seen that, from an industry where we would have 2 or 3 women leaders, today we have a good pool of many more women CXOs, maybe more in multinational companies, but we still have a large pool of women CXOs who are role models for the industry. So I would prioritize those 3, but my top one would be really measure the metrics to know where you are.
Okay. Measure. Companies are also all doing it. A lot of companies are going to do that.
Companies are doing it. How many are willing to share it would be the important one. So, share it and build out an industry metrics around, benchmarks around. That is what we would look to do. I'm not necessarily going to publish what XYZ company is doing, right? So.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah, I think post the Black Lives Matter, we've seen an increase in disclosures under gender and inclusion, right? If you look at, for instance, Intel as a part of their Global 2030 Rise program, they said that we're going to have a representation of 40% in senior leadership roles. And if you look at Adobe, they said that they've introduced a concept called opportunity parity that examines fairness in promotions across horizontal movements and demographic groups. So if you can help us understand, do you think companies setting a target and chasing them will have more visible leaders at the top? And it'll also help leaders make themselves more accountable to those gender and inclusion goals, right?
Yeah, I think it builds on the question, and if I can go first, Shilpa, on the, having the metrics and measuring them, right? So one is just measuring what is the current state, but if you don't set goals for where you want to be, and that means everything from the points that were raised on how many women do you have at the entry level, how many promotions are happening, issues around gender pay parity, around inclusion broader than just gender diversity, these shifts will not happen. And today, I think you're right that even in a CXO context, many of them, men or women, have this as their KRA, right, to drive this participation and make sure that these changes are happening more systematically than they have happened organically in the past.
Subhashini and Madhurima, would you like to add that?
Yeah, just to say, right, as Sangeeta said earlier, we need to measure so that we know what's going on. In corporate world, we say what gets measured gets done. So we have to have a goal, only then we'll move towards it. And I think increased transparency also, builds that pressure to deliver, right? If extra effort is required, it is put in because that's something very visible. And today, I think the customers are savvy enough that they don't just look at one aspect of a company when they're making the buying decision. They look at multiple aspects, right? Whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around diversity, whatever, multiple facets. Like last year at Davos, Goldman Sachs announced that they will not take a company in Europe and US to IPO if it did not have a diverse or a women director, right? That's a big and a bold statement to make. And because they made that statement, because it's so visible, I think it will create a much bigger impact than if it was just something that was agreed upon and not being held accountable to it.
Yeah, I think well said. I mean, I'm not going to add, more on the matrices. I think there is definitely a need to look at matrices and also do surveys, right? I mean, even within our own organization, the culture and the D&I surveys, do have a part in terms of the women diversity and how people feel and how, they understand about the sensitivities and things like that, which gives us an understanding of what more should we do. And I think the simple fact that all of us are running towards this target of delivering something to our clients, we don't want to miss out on that, some of these elements. And if we don't have a measure and a metric, there is a tendency for us to sort of run towards it without looking at some of these things, right? And that's what these matrices do. I mean, we have metrics all the way from, the funnel coming in from a candidate point of view to the time that people exit. And of course, we have what we call it as the D&I metrics talent dashboard, which we keep looking at. It definitely helps us to intervene at the right time, at the right point. And while we are running towards a target, having some of these things in mind will also help. I know when I say, our delivery targets, some of these things will be very important to be talked about. And if you don't have that as soft targets, hard targets, whatever way we call it as, and review it, it doesn't get happened. So it is definitely very important, I would think.
Well, what about returnship programs? How successful have they been? What is the model that works? Who wants to? Sangeeta, what have you heard so far about returnship programs?
So I've heard good examples of returnship programs where you've had women who were out of their careers for 8-10 years, came back and have really been successful. I've also heard not so good stories, Sujit, where women struggled after coming back. Their peers had moved up at much higher positions. They were somehow not being able to relate to what was happening. So, but I think the current hybrid work environment potentially offers a new lease of life to the returnship program, because you are not going to expect everybody to be at the same kind of business models that they were doing. Today, you can have a flexi working model of 4-6 hours a day if you want to achieve that. You can do a totally remote model. Plus the online skilling abilities, the ability to connect better with the organization. It's much more democratized, right? Earlier, there was always a divide between people who were every day in office versus people who potentially were on a flexi model, right? So I personally feel that this is the time, and the industry desperately needs the right talent. So every company is talking about returnship programs and how do you accelerate that. So, it is the time to reinvent that returnship model as I see it. And we are seeing a lot of companies putting focus on it, including wanting to work with NASSCOM to say, how do we build out something at an industry-wide level?
Okay. And you sense that companies will move towards treating their remote employees as equally as somebody in the office?
You have no choice, right? So I think if we go back to the pre-COVID world, then we've lost everything we've learned.
Yeah,
so.
True. All of you emphasize mentorship, and Madhurima mentioned that women particularly have a lot of self-doubts and all that. So mentorship, I guess, becomes all the more. Is there some mentorship model that really? I mean, do you have a formal one where you tell women, particularly, okay, this is for Subhashini and Madhurima and all? How do you approach that? Do you tell them? To find a mentor and work with them and all that, or do you just leave it to them to decide?
So given that hybrid is a favorite word these days, I'd say the same. We have a hybrid model. We do have a structured program under the Women in Technology, where we pair up mentors and mentees based on what the mentees are looking for to the best of our ability. That's for a limited period of time. But what I have seen working better is that informal mentoring that happens, that is not forced upon, or pairings done based on a third party's understanding, right? But it helps to have a structured program because it allows first time mentees to overcome that fear of approaching someone to ask for help. It allows them to open up, and then once they've had experience of that, they realize how it benefits them, and learn some of the things that don't work well as well. They feel more confident about approaching other leaders within and outside the organization as mentors. And in my case, right, I've been very fortunate to have some really uh, you know very clear mentors, in the sense that they've helped me develop my clarity of thought, right? And then did I think of them as mentors? No, they were just someone I would reach out to for advice whenever I had some doubt or wanted to talk about it to someone. And now we learn that the word is mentor, but that's been there since early days. So I would say that the informal mentoring is more longer term. It's more stronger, but the structured programs that we have allow people to experience mentoring in the first place.
Okay.
Subhashini, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, again, very well put, but let me just talk, a couple of points from what Madhurima talked about as well, right? One is definitely organizations have to give a platform for women to come together and have some open conversations and to know each other, because we are not really very good with networking, going out and doing all these things, because your tendency is that, okay, I finished my job, here are my kids waiting at home. There's already a guilt that I have lost the time of 8-9 hours. They must be missing, whether they're missing me or not. And you tend to go back, and that's the best way. But to have, structured platforms within the 10 hours, 9 hours they work, helps them to have a guilt-free conversation, first of all. And that's the first trigger point, right? And the second is, in the last 20 years, number of DNI initiatives I've run. I've seen some to be successful, some not to be successful. But the point in this particular mentoring and coaching is women have to relate to the other women. I mean, we have had some successful women from other countries. Of course, I was in the past leading across multiple geographies. And we have some great role models, let's say in the East or the West. But people tend to sort of relate to somebody who they know that would have gone through a similar circumstance, and that's when they really open up. And the real, the rubber meets the road at that point, right? Which is, I can relate to Madhurima and I can talk to her, and I'm going through something, and she seems to be somebody that I can talk to. That has to be the bonding that happens informally between the two, and that is where these sessions, which makes them know, oh, I know a Sangeeta I talk to, I know a Subhashini I can talk to, or a Madhurima I can talk to. So that much the organizations must do. A platform, a space for people to come together. After that, it's about who you relate with and who you relate to and how you take it forward from there.
Okay. Yeah. Shilpa, there's some questions from the audience.
Yeah, we have some audience questions. This one is from Rashmi N. What challenges are faced by women in management?
Madhurima can probably go next. I think there is no, in my mind, and this is purely my personal, there is nothing specific that I would call it as gender. And I will come, there are certain things which are specific, which is more contextual. But management, everything which is challenging in the current context, with given the pays and given everything, I think every challenge is common to both men and women. But the additional challenge could potentially be some of the context that women come from. Like what I said, we really want to be a part of, major decision makings at home for our kids, as a wife, as a mother, as a, sister-in-law, whatever it is, right? And also the, challenges and the opportunities that come in the organization. So how do we really switch between these two, emotionally, physically, otherwise, is something that, because we have a larger so to say, map that we draw around ourselves, right? And we are not just confining to. So that could be a potential challenge where you are struggling with priorities of home and office at the same time, struggling with some of the pain points at both the places. So that could have an impact on the long hours that you work. And also, the reality, could be that there are certain, naturally, if you're not somebody who is able to make a very strong case in point, and then you tend to sort of take a little bit softer space when you know that there are too many people talking about it. And I think that's more in our minds than, the people around us. You could absolutely, voice and say, hey, this is what it is. This is how I feel, and not get bound by what people would think or otherwise. But again, that's nothing to do with gender, but there is a tendency a little bit that you could take a little bit, get easily pushed back. Okay, I'll take a softer approach to this. So those are some of the things that naturally are, a part of women's nature, and hence it could be. But otherwise, I think, the challenges are one and the same. I mean, everybody is trying to go to the top. Everybody is trying to do the right things, and there are too many people trying to do that. Hence, there is going to be the competition, and the best will win, right? I mean, Madhurima is smiling, so I'm going to give it to her to talk about it a little bit as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to agree with you before that. And I totally agree. I mean, at least my wife, I mean, she has to think of those three. I don't think about it, but my wife has to think about those 3 meals that needs to be prepared for the day. I don't think about my kids' homework at all, but my wife thinks that's simple. She has to be involved in that. So I perfectly understand where you're coming from. Madhurima, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I will slightly, beg to differ from you, Subhashini. I think women do face more challenges in management roles compared to males, right? And I'll tell you why. So first is relating back to what we've all been discussing, right? A lack of role models, which means there are lesser women. When you are in that room, probably many times you'll end up being the only woman, right? And you will have to speak louder to make yourself heard, right? So that's, I think, one of the very stark challenges that come up when you are new in that group, right? When you are a newly promoted manager, let's say. And you said, while women have become more conscious and career oriented, the men haven't seen many role models, so they also take a while to accept. They also take that time that you're part of that group, you have a seat at the table, and they need to listen to you, right? And one thing which I have observed personally, and also I have read a lot of research around it, is that women are often held to higher performance standards compared to men. And that means that as they have to work doubly hard at office, in addition to all that you shared, Subhashini, that they also have to take care of things at home and work doubly hard at office. So it makes it slightly difficult. Plus, as you go higher up the ladder, the stakes get higher, which means that the criticism that you would face, or the judgment that you would face, tends to be sometimes, not in all organizations, but sometimes it tends to be harsher for women, right? So how do you solve for that? We've all discussed that. Have more women in the room, have more women part of the group, so that you don't stand out, so that you don't get labeled as aggressive when you are just being assertive, right? So I think that's one thing. And also, network. It takes a little bit of time to build that respect, to command that respect in that group, that yes, you have a voice and you are as logical as them, you have equal decision making powers, and steer the group in the direction that you want. Yeah, I'll pause. I can go on for this, but yeah.
Those are good points. Sangeeta, you want to add to that?
So I tend to agree with both the different points of view raised, right? I think, when you are at a management level, the challenges from a business perspective can be the same for men and women. So I don't think those are any different, but, the obligations of home and how you're wired up, that doesn't change. But I think at the same time, the importance of having to prove yourself, and maybe it's what women bring upon themselves, right? May not be to the point Madhurima raised. It's not maybe something that others are asking you to do, but we tend to, focus more on saying, am I doing enough? Am I performing enough? I haven't finished this task. I need to get out and do everything, at the time that it's given. So I think in some ways, the burden of expectations is what we tend to carry. And, that can be a challenge, but it can also be an opportunity, right, to do better.
No, true. So this is a related question, and it's asking about men. With respect to working women, this is from Arjun Kumar asking, with respect to working women, what should men at workplaces and at homes be mindful of so that they don't end up causing problems?
Everything, Kumar, I would say everything. I mean, where do we start and where do we end? I think the very fact that you're asking this question means that the first step towards any change is becoming sensitive to that. I think you're already there, right? Hey, I think Sujit spoke very beautifully. I mean, I don't think about, kids are kids for both, husband and wife, but why is it that I don't think about their food, but, my wife is already thinking about it? Maybe we put too much of expectations on ourselves, which is something that we need to change. But the very fact that you can be somebody who, women around you can speak their mind and ask for help. That is the little bit that I would think that every man can do. All they have to do is to be that empathetic person where I feel that I can talk to you and tell you, right? That solves all kinds of problems. Where I feel that most of my leaders who have been my mentors, and many male mentors, right, I've had, were people who were approachable, who I could talk to very openly about a problem. That is the effect that it can have. So just being open, just being sensitive, just giving the time to be to somebody who wants to talk to you, and somebody feels that, hey, I can go and talk to Kumar. That's all you need to do. Everything else will automatically fall in place.
Anybody wants to add to that, Madhurima?
No, I think Subhashini put it beautifully, right? Just do what you can, accept them as they are, right? Don't try to change them, and be there when somebody asks for help. The word that's going around these days, the formal world, is male allies. So just display that allyship and stand with them.
Yeah.
And you can do it at home, do it for, women at home, do it for your daughters, nieces, wives, mothers, grandmothers, do it for your colleagues at work. And you've made a massive change, I would say, just doing it even in your small circle.
Yeah. And like you said, and women should also ask. I mean, I sometimes wish my wife would just tell me, do this. Half the time she expects me to think about it and all that.
That's the problem, right?
I would happily do it if she were to tell me, but it just doesn't sometimes come to my mind, okay, I must do this.
That's how we are wired differently.
I think men are from Mars and women are from Venus. If you had not read that book, I must say that I think we will set expectations for each other very well. If we read that book and know that we are wired differently, and let's accept that fact and see that both, can be very well leveraged for the benefit of both. That's all that's required, I think, at a personal and a professional and at a macroeconomic level, I would say.
No, absolutely.
And on a lighter note, what I have seen is that given the COVID situation, given that many men had to work from home, at least in India, a lot of them realized how much work the women have to do at home. They didn't even realize what was being done, right? So
very, very true. Very true.
We totally welcome COVID. We totally welcome COVID. I'm telling you that. What we couldn't do, COVID did it for all of us.
No, I realize, just to have those 3 meals a day for the family, that requires thought, preparation, all of that. Not easy. Every day, every single day. Yeah. Shilpa?
We have this question from one of our viewers, Somana S. How do you identify a good mentor?
So it already been answered, Shilpa, that companies have to have a 2-pronged strategy. One is obviously a formal mentoring platform where, at least for the first timers, there is a structured process to identify mentors and mentees. And after that, it is really the network effect that takes into play. So, just to take an example of NASCOM events, we would always wonder, does a diversity event add any value? But when we spoke to the participants, they were like, multiple things I've realized. One is the issues I'm grappling with are not my own. Two is there are many more role model women that I can go and talk to that, that are maybe not in my own network, but I'm able to go and connect with them. So I think the whole way of having both formal and informal, processes is what is needed to drive mentorship. But I think there's to be good commitment. And as Subhashini said, there should be the understanding of each other is very critical for mentorship to work.
Okay. All of you have some great crashes. How important are those? I mean, I've seen some of the crashes, mind-blowing, some of the kinds that you are setting up now. How much difference does that make?
I mean, it's made a huge difference to me. I can tell you from my personal experience, my first daughter, we did have, I think the first few years of your motherhood is a tremendous pressure. One, of course, you're also having your own physical weakness. You're still not up to it, after delivery. And second is, you want to be back to your office and your own self, rather than all the time being around with, managing the baby. But you also want, your baby is your life. You want your baby to be safe and nice. So you're going through too many things, and a good facility can really make wonders, right? I mean, you are really off that thought between that 9 and 5 or whatever time you take. I think it definitely, whatever you may have, you can have your relatives, your mother, everybody needs a break, everybody needs rest, and they have been there, done that, and we are asking them to again do it on our behalf. There is a little bit of guilt there. Are we really being fair there? So I think, a good facility, a facility which gives you the comfort that you're leaving the kid with the safe hands and you can go back and pick, is a very, very important factor for you to focus in your job. It's not about the number of hours, but the hours that you put in, are you doing your best in that, right? Whatever you do, are you present there at that point in time? That makes the difference to the output, right? Whether it is the quality time with the kid or otherwise. So in my mind, it played a very, very important role. And I will continue to say that a lot of women have come back and said that's really made a lot of difference to their career.
I'm sure. Yeah, so we are almost out of time, almost 5 o'clock. Last closing remarks from each of you, one message each for men and women. Sangeeta, you want to go?
I'll take the last one this time. So,
okay, Subhashini?
Yeah, of course. I would say that, first of all, stick to what you're very passionate about, because even if there is a small push, then you will not come back to work if that's not something that you enjoy doing. So pick up something that you're passionate about and stay confident. Ask for help, whatever that could be at whatever point in time. We have a tendency not to ask for help, and set the expectations around you. I think that's very important, around you, on yourself as well. It's okay to let go of something. It's okay to be on a break for some time. It's okay for you to not do it at that time. I think forget it, forgive about it, and then move on. And be flexible and kind on yourself. I think that's all I would say that's required, as a small piece of advice that I probably would have followed.
Madhurima?
Yeah, I would say the same, have self-belief, have some self-love. And if you can, find someone who can be there for you, to push you when times are tough, right? When life is not treating you fairly, you need someone who will bring back that joy of living, that joy of working and doing whatever you're capable of. So find that person. And, whenever there are self-doubts, this is especially for the women in tech, right? Remember that the world's first programmer was a woman, Lady Ada Lovelace. It was not Charles Babbage, right? It was Lady Ada Lovelace. Think of, Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. She is like, very well known in the tech circle. So think of those women and countless others. They could do it. You could do it too. And to the men, I would just like to say, be mindful. If you are mindful, if you're thinking about, helping the women around you, you'll definitely find an opportunity. So just act on that.
Great. No, I think, both the panelists have covered what individuals want. So maybe I'll just put it at an organization level, that don't just think about diversity as a trophy, as a media talking point, right? it is a business ethos. It's what will drive your company to the next stage of growth or next stage of evolution. So I would say think of it like that and not just a talking point that some companies may tend to do.
No, absolutely. As one of you earlier said, all kind of biases will emerge. Even in AI, there'll be biases if you don't correct all of these inequalities. Yeah, absolutely. So great discussion. Thank you so much to you, Sangeeta, Subhashini, Madhurima. Hope to have you again. We'll see a lot of programs happening. So I guess we'll have a lot to discuss about which ones are working well, which ones are not. So thanks again from all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.